The meta is finally starting to settle for Scholomance Academy, and it's about time we see some changes. That's right, it's balance changes season. The Hearthstone team is making some very nice updates to the game in patch number 18.2. Included in this patch is Battlegrounds parties, new Battlegrounds heroes, Battlegrounds minion updates, and most importantly, card balance updates. Those balance changes include Secret Passage, Cabal Acolyte, Totem Goliath, Archwitch Willow, and Darkglare. Some of these changes are buffs, while others are nerfs. In this video, we're going to be taking an in-depth look at what each of these changes means for the current meta. Before we do that, however, make sure to subscribe to the Tempo Strategy channel for all of the latest and up-to-date Hearthstone, Legends of Runeterra, and Shadowverse content. That's enough of the chit-chat, let's break down these nerfs one by one. The changes coming up include 5 different balance updates, some of which are obvious nerfs or buffs, with one card being adjusted overall. The nerfs were to Secret Passage and Cabal Acolyte, while the buffs were to Archwitch Willow and Totem Goliath. Darkglare was also adjusted, but can be argued for both being a nerf or a buff, depending on how you look at it. The first and most impactful change is Secret Passage. Secret Passage now replaces your hand with 4 cards instead of 5. The change to Cabal Acolyte reduced its health by 2 full points, lowering it from 6 to 4. Totem Goliath is now a 5/5 instead of a 4/4, and only overloads for 1 mana. Archwitch Willow now costs 8 mana, but is a 5/5 instead of a 7/7. Lastly, Darkglare is now a 2 mana 2/3 that refreshes a single mana crystal instead of 2 when your hero takes damage. All of these changes combine to hopefully shake up the metagame, and here is how. One of the most apparent and impactful changes made was for Secret Passage. Aggro Rogue was a very strong and powerful deck in the metagame. One of those reasons was this very card. It provided so much utility for Rogue in general that it was almost impossible to not have it included in your deck list. It could find your burst for lethal, replace your weaker hands with much stronger ones, give you combo potential with powerful cards like Edwin Van Cleef, and even find you answers to some of the trickiest board states you could be presented. I wouldn't be surprised if everybody has run across an aggro rogue player who plays this card and instantly ends up with an insane burst damage to finish the game. I certainly know we have. Now that Secret Passage gives you 4 cards instead of 5, it will decrease these odds by a significant amount. Less games will be decided on the spot when this card is played for lethal. However, this card is still very powerful. The card simply went from being absolutely insane to just being simply insane. We can't imagine rogues will stop running this card and don't see this change heavily hurting the archetype. However, it's nice to see it getting toned down just a tad bit. Cabal Acolyte is another very important nerf. Right now, Priest is one of the most powerful classes. It has removal, sustain, pressure, and even infinite value. Cabal Acolyte was a combination of both pressure and removal. Its ability to win the game on the spot against aggro decks is extremely impressive. The fact that this minion was also very heavily statted was pretty absurd. This nerf was another very necessary nerf that won't actually make the card unplayable, it will simply tone down an absurdly powerful card to be just a little less powerful. At the end of the day, Priest will still be running this card as either a 1-off or a 2-off. It is just way too strong not to be playing this card in Priest right now, especially since there are some powerful aggressive decks in the metagame. Shaman really needed some help, and hopefully this is what they needed. Totem Goliath was a fairly underwhelming card on release, with some very neat totem synergy and a strong potential. This buff seemed like just the thing that Totem Shaman needed. The increase in stats is always nice, but more important than that is the overload for only 1 mana instead of 2. The reason that is because it allows for players to utilize Bloodlust on curve the following turn. Players will now have a very difficult decision of whether or not they want to clear this minion. If they clear it, they open themselves up to a pretty powerful Bloodlust turn, but if they don't, then they could easily make copies of this minion with cards like Splitting Axe, since it is a totem. In the past, players never had to worry about this because it always overloaded for 2 mana. This new buff allows for some interesting plays between players, and it will be interesting to see if it makes a large enough difference for Totem Shaman to become relevant. Archwitch Willow was an interesting buff candidate, simply because it didn't appear to receive much play, if any, upon release. The effect is very powerful, summoning minions without paying their mana, especially from the deck, has proven to be quite strong in Hearthstone. One of the major issues currently is its mana cost and the lack of strong playable demons to summon off of Archwitch Willow. Now, if we were to go way back in time to something like the Q-Block meta days, this card could have been quite oppressive. Pulling out 2 Void Lords at once, or maybe even a couple of Doom Guards, would have spelled trouble for a lot of opponents. Unfortunately, that just isn't the case right now. Seeing this card get buffed may lead to some experimentation though, and that's always a good sign. We don't really see this making too much of an impact inside of the meta, but you never know. There is also always the potential for more extremely strong demons to come out in the future. That could result in a very powerful Warlock legendary. Last but certainly not least, released is Darkglare. This one is difficult to judge as it can be seen either way. The fact that it comes down earlier is powerful. The fact that it still has a decent stat line for its new mana cost is good. However, for the most part, this seems to be a nerf to the card. One of the driving factors for Warlocks that ran this card was the amount of mana you received back from using life taps or other minions effects, and now that it's only 1 mana instead of 2, it may not lead to as many powerful turns as you might have seen in the past. It seems as if the card may have been stronger in its previous rendition, but there is still some room for this card in Zoo Warlocks. Time will have to tell whether or not this card will continue to make an impact on the metagame, or if it will just fall to the wayside. All of these balance changes are pretty minor from what we've seen in the past. The cards that were nerfed weren't hit too hard, the buffs were nice but not over the top, and overall it seems like they are trying to address some very problematic issues the meta has right now. Those issues include Priest and Aggro Rogue strength alongside Shaman's overall weakness. Now, will this be enough? Most likely not. However, it's always a step in the right direction to see any sort of balance changes being made. And hey, worst case scenario, it looks like there are some really cool new things coming to Battlegrounds, and that may just be worth checking out. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Do you think there should have been some other card adjustments? What cards would you have liked to see adjusted or changed? Go ahead and leave a comment down below. Also, if you haven't done so already, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the Tempo Strategy channel for all the latest and greatest Hearthstone content. We wouldn't want you missing out on anything. We'll see you all next time.